Hello and welcome to the therapy floor with me, Dr. Ritz.
And me, Dr. Vicky. We are on the floor getting deep into the human experience, unpacking everyday dilemmas through the lenses of two psychologists. Welcome back to part 2 of the therapy floor in partnership with Snooze. Our first dilemma, if you haven't watched it, was about a new parent anticipating the effects of stress and anxiety on her new baby and wanting tips on how to deal with that, how to manage that. And we have our second dilemma, which I'm going to read out.
Let's go.
The dilemma is, I'm having my second baby. How do I be patient with my toddler and newborn at the same time? Do I have to prioritise being calm with one before the other? So just for a little bit more context, this person says, I have a little boy who's 2. He's well behaved, but as toddlers do, he does have meltdowns. He gets all of my attention now, but I can't help but wonder how I'll be able to have the same patience when I have 2. And if they're both having a meltdown, is it harmful to their little brains to look after one and ignore the other? That's cute. Or do you have any ways of practicing patience so I don't become the third having a meltdown? Love that honesty there. Do you have any thoughts, Rick?
I was just going to say, join them. Sometimes it's good to get it out and I know I've done it. Like the one's crying, then the other cries, and then I start crying.
Yeah.
And they're just like, they look at me.
Wasn't that like on an advert?
Was
I feel like that must have been on an advert.
I think, lots of parents do this.
Where a toddler they were in like a supermarket and the toddler was having a meltdown and the mum was just like,
Yeah.
And then the toddler was just like,
Yeah.
Okay.
Ours happen at bedtime, always. Really? It's the eldest one will set off the youngest one.
Aww.
And then, I'm trying everything. And then I'm just like, I'm going to go for it too now. And the look of, the first time I did it, the look of shock on their faces was like, you don't get to do that. Mummy does. Mummy has emotions too. So I know we're having a giggle, but I kind of want to lead with that because actually when you were reading that out loud and when I was reading it, I just thought there's 2 things that are coming up for me here. And one is I feel like self-compassion is a huge part of this.
Yeah.
There's something going on where I think maybe perfectionism is playing up for you. I don't know if that's something that you struggle with. I have to be patient with one. How am I going to give that exact same experience to the other? How am I going to be patient with myself? And just adding self-compassion into that and recognizing, yes, we do try and be patient, but sometimes when it is all kicking off, we can't be. And that's not that we're harming our children. That's just us having a human experience, and it's really valid. And I hope that me crying on the bedroom floor shows you how human and normal it is.
I so agree with that, Ritz, because when I was reading it, I was quite struck by, first of all, is it harmful to their little brains? So you're already thinking that you have we do have the possibility to harm children because they're vulnerable. But you're already thinking, gosh, is this going to be harmful to look after one and ignore the other? I think that those are quite extreme positions, aren't they? You're nurturing one and then you're ignoring and harming the other, when I don't think it needs to be evaluated or classified in that way.
Because that sounds like neglect.
It does.
Yeah.
And that's
not what you're doing. Not what you're doing.
No. The fact that you're thinking about this and you're thinking about how I can be helpful and how I can manage this well, you're not on the pathway to expressing or giving out emotional neglect to your child.
You sound like such a loving mother that you're thinking about this. You sound very, very thoughtful. And that's why I wanted to pick up on the perfectionism thing, because I think in motherhood it can be something sometimes that people didn't realise that they had. like this trait of perfectionism, and then motherhood can evoke that.
Yes.
Oh
my gosh, yeah.
In parents, in mothers.
It so can, because I think, I'm just thinking about clients that I've worked with who have really struggled with this idea of being a perfect mum and what this means, because you're a woman, so therefore you should be a perfect mother. You should be equal parts feminine, equal parts maternal goddess, equal parts like nurturer, perfect cook, home cook, and the picture of patience and elegance. And I think, what a load of nonsense, actually. But it's so easy, because it's kind of like the stereotype that gets perpetuated and the image that gets put out there. This perfect mum who can do all things and do no wrong and do no harm. It's so unhelpful.
No, it's really unhelpful. Really unhelpful. And that's why I would come back to self-compassion and also preparing yourself for the tantrums are going to happen. I found it interesting that you started with he's well behaved, almost like you're having to tell us my son is well behaved. He has meltdowns like other babies and toddlers do. You don't need to say that.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to prove that to anybody because they're not meant to be well behaved.
I know, and I think there's a lot of relief that can come from literally just saying to yourself, a toddler is a toddler.
Yeah.
A toddler has no clue how to manage emotions. They have no boundaries. When they want something, they want it. And that is what toddlers do. And I think even just that expectation that this is the norm, this is what's going to happen, can help to take the edge off even a little bit slightly.
Just make it lighter for you.
Yeah.
So I think if you can prepare yourself that it's going to probably happen that your little boy is going to need you just when you're maybe about to put the baby down or feeding the baby, like they're going to need you, and it will probably all kick off. And so if you're wanting to learn about like how do I practice more patience with it, I think it's also practicing toleration with it. So just being able to say to your elder one, like, I can see that you really need me right now, and that's really hard for you because mummy is doing this or that, and I need to do this or that. Like, I actually have to prioritize this or that if that's something you have to do. And I will come back to you when I can or when I'm able to. And
that is so holding, isn't it? And they may react to that. They may still want to test that and want to have a meltdown or react against that. Again, that's so normal. But over time, that consistent message that you're going to give them will sink in. And, I was saying this to our friend the other day, actually, she has a toddler and a little one as well. And I was saying to her, like, your relationship with your eldest, your toddler, can stand it. Like, it's not a relationship that can just break. It's flexible, it's pliable, and all that you have been inputting and giving him in all this time, all of that is not going to disappear because of the appearance of the new child. It will shake, it will flex, and he will feel at times abandoned and a little bit frustrated with you. That's to be expected. But you can trust that the relationship has enough strength within it to still be strong.
You're holding him.
Yeah.
It's coming back to holding him. And how are you communicating to him that even though he's maybe there kicking off and you're holding the baby, that you're still holding him in your heart? That you're holding him in your heart, and that he will eventually come to see that, and he will eventually come to realize that. And sometimes the other thing I want to say is that when we are, because I like what you said there, when we give you these suggestions, it doesn't mean that suggestion is just going to calm your toddler down at all. No. They're probably going to keep reacting. Like, that's part of it. It's not like a script of say this and then they'll be okay. It's just say this or say something along the lines of this, because eventually that message will get heard. And it's not going to get heard on the first time or the second or the third. Like, it's constantly using repetition to say, this is hard, but I will come back to you. And I'm here.
Just like you are needing to develop patience, your toddler will also need to develop patience patience with you and learn it, and he's definitely not going to learn it on the first, third, fifth time.
No.
But when we think again back to the relationship, that's something that can only be strengthened when you consistently show up. And maybe on a practical level, maybe you can also think about how you can facilitate having time just with him as well. So he also feels like, oh, okay, even though my mind and my emotions are telling me that mummy doesn't love me anymore, or mummy is just not, she doesn't care, or she's just focused on something else, she's got a new toy or a new child. Your consistent behaviour and showing up to having time just for the two of you will tell him otherwise.
And it doesn't have to be big chunks of time.
No.
It doesn't have to be big chunks. It could be like 3 minutes reading a book together.
Yeah.
2 minutes, tracing on his palm and just saying, I see you, I connect you, I'm here. The other thing I think that's really important with patience is recognizing that patience comes from a place when you have capacity. So I think trying to be patient when your energy, your cup is running low, the petrol's not in the tank, be aware of that, and again, show yourself compassion for that. And this is where I would be encouraging you to think about who is your support system, who is your tribe, who can you call on to help you to have space and time to fill up again, to look after your well-being, so that you can armour up and practice patience. Because I think, when you're dealing with toddlers and babies, you do need a bit of armour.
Yeah.
And that this isn't something you need to do on your own.
No. I really like that. Like replenishing your cup, hardening your armour.
Yeah.
And you can't do that in the moments when you are feeling the most stressed and under pressure.
Yeah.
But how can you plan for this?
Exactly. And when you lose it, like we do, repair. So much of the relationship gets built on how we repair with people, how we repair with children.
Yeah.
And you'll be teaching both of your kids so much from that. So the moments where you do lose it, and then being able to come back to that and say later on, mummy got really loud there, didn't she? Like everybody was getting loud and mummy got loud too. And that wasn't helpful to anyone. Felt good maybe, but probably doesn't help. Let's try again.
Yeah. And I think that's almost like a little mantra that kids can pick up on.
Yeah.
Even when they're losing it, and you can kind of like let them have their movement, and then you can say to them again, let's try again.
Let's try again.
That's like a nice little phrase that I think a toddler can latch onto.
Yeah.
Let's try again.
Yeah. It's very digestible.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And in that, it's showing, again, compassion, patience, and love, really.
Yeah, I'm not rejecting you.
Yeah.
I'm not rejecting me either. And I think there's a lot to be learnt from that.
Anything else?
I think something I want to think about, or I think could be helpful to think about, which maybe doesn't get brought up enough, is that when you have a second child, it's very exciting and everyone's very excited, but there's also a bit of an ending happening where it's the ending of, as you said, all your focus just being on him and the relationship of the two of you, and if there's a partner involved, like the three of you, and that then moving into another person coming into that system. And I wonder if you have thought about that ending at all, and if that's stirring up any feelings for you of moving to sharing, as you said, your time, your attention, your capacity from 1 to 2.
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel? Because it sounds like what you're saying is that he might be quite sad about it. And I think psychologically, it's also quite normal for a parent to also feel sad that, yes, we have this very exciting thing happening, but something's also changing from what we knew, and that can feel quite sad.
Of course it can. And I think with anything that, with change and with accepting anything new into your life, as exciting and as welcome that change may be, you are still having to give up something to accept something new. And you are having to give up being, a parent of just one child, and that era is coming to an end. And I think it's right that you grieve that and you feel sad about it, as well as feeling excitement about the new addition to the family. It's like a mark of a chapter, isn't it?
Yeah. So you might want to think about things you maybe want to do with your son before the baby arrives.
Yeah,
like,
good
how do
idea.
you maybe want to mark these moments? And that's another way that you can hold on to it in your head, with memories, in your heart, with those memories, and also sharing that back with your son.
Yeah.
That, do you remember, like, before your sibling came and we went to this place and we did this together, and just sharing that and reminding them of that connection and that bond. And
I think that can be really good. It's reminding me, I can't remember this at all, but my mum said to me, because I was the first child, and my mum said to me that she would always read with me a particular story that was our thing. And then I think there were times where she just didn't have the time to read with me. And I would say to her, "You don't love me anymore." Because she was busy with my sister as well. But my mum was like, "Oh my gosh, that broke my heart." And, you develop new routines, don't you? Yeah. So I think even kind of having that conversation, as much as they can understand, they can't understand that much at that age, but letting them know that, maybe we're not going to be able to do this all the time, but I'm always going to still make time for you. And we're always going to have time to do something, whatever, how often that may be. We'll always still have our time together.
And then I think reiterating what you said, because the fear there, isn't it, is that if you're not showing up for me with the book, that equals you don't love me. So I think reiterating and saying, if it's like somebody else reading the book, that person can still read you the book and mummy still loves you.
Yeah. Just kind of making that very clear, explicit.
Yeah, I think that could be really helpful.
Yeah. My poor mum. I think that must have broken her heart. Like, oh.
I think it would have.
Yeah. I can't remember it at all.
But also great that you could say it to her.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And I was 5 when my sister came along. Had a bit more reasoning, but still the sensitive, emotional child that I was.
But I think, that's interesting, because I think whether you're 2 or 5, it doesn't just happen straight away either, does it? It can happen later on. Like, he might be fine now, and then in a few years, it might then be like, do you know, I really actually don't like that I have to share my mum with my other sibling now, who's like, maybe he's 5 and she's 3. So it might not even happen now, it might happen later on. But I think if you can keep these thoughts in mind, then
you're well prepared.
You're well prepared. Yeah. I think that brings us to the end of the second dilemma.
I think so. Once again, thank you so much for Snooze.
Thank you, Snooze,
And for the parents of Snooze who have sent in your dilemmas. I'm sure lots of people can relate to some of these topics that you've raised.
We both definitely did, didn't we?
Yeah. So thank you.
So you can catch us back next week on the therapy floor, and we will see you very, very soon.
Bye.
Bye.
This is Dr. Ritz
And Dr. Vicky.
Remember to like, subscribe, and follow us on our social media channels.